gear. When you get into home recording, it can be the four-letter word that causes the most confusion and the most angst. So in this week's Studio Live Today podcast, I'm breaking it down and I'm giving you all of my recommendations for the best gear for your home studio. And more important than that, what do you actually need to create? And how important is it to choose the right gear? Or is good enough good enough? Let's dive in and take a look. Hello, my name is Pete Johns. This is the Studio Live Today podcast. Before we get started, what you're looking at here on the video version, if you're looking at that, is my studio gear guide. You can get to that at studiolivetoday.com/gear, and you'll see links there to Amazon, to Sweetwater, to Thomann, to eBay, including all of my mobile and desktop setup. So if you want a bit of a cheat sheet, if you just want to use what Johns uses around here, you can head on over to the gear guide. Those are affiliate links, meaning if you do make a purchase, they break off a small chunk and send it to me. Full disclosure up front. Let's dive in and talk about this. So if you're jumping into recording, the first thing I like to say when I do a video about gear is that if you have a mobile phone, an iPad, a laptop, a PC, you're already well on your way to being able to record because the device really doesn't matter. The more important thing is that you actually start recording and start creating music. You can build up your gear over time. You can add to your gear. You can improve your gear over time. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Another quick warning before we dive in. The absolute cheapest gear in the world, that's a no-name brand that you can get for like $20 for a microphone on eBay or Amazon, is going to perform like a $20 microphone that you get from eBay or Amazon. So my other warning, even though I said use what you got and absolutely use what you got, if you are going to invest, at least go to that base level. And that's what we'll be talking about here today. We're not talking thousands of dollars worth of gear. We're talking the stuff in that middle zone. Now, what do we need to talk about first? Well, when you're recording, you need something to connect up to your device. Once you get past the whole, I'm just using the built-in microphone on my iPad or my iPhone, you'll need an audio interface. Now, what does an audio interface do? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an interface for your audio devices to go into your Mac, your PC, your iPad, or your iPhone. Now, I know it's pretty basic, and I've spoken about this a bunch of times on the show before, and if you want to learn more about how audio interfaces work, there's plenty of information out there. But in the basic world, you plug it in via USB, and we're lucky that these days everything is USB. So it's either USB-A or USB-C. If you need to adapt it, you can go to A or to C, and you can buy lightning adapters as well. If you're going into an iPhone or an iPad that has lightning, make sure you buy the genuine Apple Lightning to USB 3 adapter that's linked on my gear guide. There's reasons for it. I'm not going to go into it here, but if you use those cheap $10 or $5 adapters, yeah, your mileage is going to vary, usually in a bad way. So what do I recommend? Well, there's a couple of industry standards here. I love the Steinberg. It used to be called the UR22C. They've changed it. They've modernized it. They've made it black. It looks a lot sleeker now than it used to. And it's called the IXO22. It's the same interface. It just looks a bit different. So it gives you good quality audio. It gives you two inputs for your microphones or for an instrument or for a stereo line in. So regardless of whether you're recording your guitars, your microphones, or your keyboards, something like this is going to work well for you. At the time of doing this, it's $169.99 US. That's at Sweetwater. You can check out Amazon, Thomann, eBay, all the places, and find the best deal for these. And I'll give you some bonus tips at the end about what to look for when you're shopping, when you're actually choosing where to buy something, because that can be super important as well. So why do I use this one and why do I recommend the Steinberg? Again, it is just a solid as a rock little interface. It does everything you need to do. It uses USB-C for its power, and you can also connect up via USB-C. It's just got everything that you need in an audio interface. Separate volume for your headphones as well as your main volume. You can monitor either with your effects or completely latency free directly through. You've got 48 volts of phantom power for your microphones, which we'll talk about in a moment as to why that's important. And it just works. I've been using Steinberg interfaces for almost a decade now, and they just work. They're just a workhorse of the home studio. So I recommend the Steinberg. You've probably seen the little red devil around though, because this is the most popular audio interface for home recording on the planet. It's the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It is slightly more expensive than the Steinberg, and it does pretty much all the same things. Connects up via USB-C. You can connect it up to any of your devices, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone or a Mac or a PC. And once again, USB-C connection there. You can go USB-C to A if you've got older gear that uses a USB-C A connection, but does the same thing. You connect up your microphones, you connect up your guitars, you connect up your audio devices, and you can record in. And why would you use this as opposed to just like converting a cable? I get asked that a lot. It's like, I've got a microphone input in my laptop, in my PC, in my iPad. Can't I just get an adapter and plug in? Short answer is no. The reason being is that those are usually analog inputs, which are going to have a lot of noise. The other problem is what you'll notice with an audio interface is it has the ability to monitor. And when you're recording, as we'll talk about a little bit later, you need the ability to be able to monitor through a pair of headphones. But otherwise, you're going to get something called mic bleed, especially if you're using microphones, especially if you're using large diaphragm condenser microphones. You're going to generate a lot of additional noise and bleed, which means you're going to hear the other track. Let's say you're singing along to a guitar. If you're playing that through speakers, or if you can't hear it at all, that's not going to be good. You're either going to not be able to know how to sing because you can't hear it if you can't monitor the audio, or if you're monitoring the audio out loud, that's going to be captured in your microphone. You don't want either of those things, clearly. So a good quality audio interface is important. Now, do you need to spend $170 or $200 on something like this? No, there's other cheaper options. So PreSonus makes some good audio interfaces, as do M Audio. There are a bunch of other options that you can go with. And if you're watching, the video version here, I'm jumping in here, and the PreSonus audio box is half the price. And it's not half the quality. So you're probably going to get 70 to 80% of the quality with the PreSonus audio box, again, in my experience, as opposed to a Focusrite or a Steinberg interface. So if you go lower than that, here's the big warning. You'll probably see, once you start doing your research, you'll go onto somewhere like Amazon and you'll search for the Focusrite Scarlett or the Steinberg interface, and you'll see these other ones that are called Focaline or something like that, Focal. Like there's different names, and they'll be much, much cheaper. They'll look exactly the same. They'll say they have all the same specs, but they'll be much, much cheaper. You will get what you pay for. So if you're looking at those audio interfaces that are $40, $50, $60, you're going to get a $40, $50, $60 experience. And those are about half, if not less than, the quality. Why? Because the quality of the components is what's important. The preamps in your microphone, the quality of that analog circuitry, the converter that converts the analog to the digital that goes out to your computer, all of those things are really important. And the better quality they are, the better your audio is going to sound. If you skimp on the audio interface, you will regret it in the future. So if you're going to spend a little more to get something that is slightly above entry level, the audio interface is the place to do it. Again, in my experience, this is all just my experience. You do you, but there's an opportunity for you to do that. I'm not going to talk about USB microphones here, but that is another option. If you don't want to go down the route of having an audio interface and you're only recording your own voice, let's say you're doing all electronic music, or you're rapping, or you're not a guitarist or a keys player, you can use a USB microphone, and there are a heap of USB microphones out there. You've probably seen the Blue Yetis that a lot of people use. There's some great microphones from Audio-Technica. The Rode PodMic USB version is a little more expensive. It's nearly $200, but that is great. You've probably seen the Shure MV7 around if people are doing podcasts and things. So there are a lot of options, and there's even things like the Audio-Technica AT2020 USB version, which is a USB version of a microphone I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So you do have the option of just going a USB microphone. And the good part about that is a USB microphone is like an audio interface if it was just the one microphone and the headphones. Because the good thing is your USB microphones have the headphones built in, meaning you can monitor your sound and you can record using a USB microphone, monitoring your audio through the built-in headphone jack on that microphone, and it just shortcuts a lot of the process, a lot of the stuff that you need to get things done. One more thing I'm going to talk about is our friends over at IK Multimedia and the iRig interfaces. I've been using iRig Pro interfaces for a long time. The Solo, the Duo, the Quattro. There's even newer ones than that, but this is the old workhorse. This is my reliable recommendation. If you just want to plug and play and go, iRig have got you covered with all of their different input interfaces. So they've got interfaces for, again, for your guitars. They've got them for your microphones. They've even got modern ones that use the 32-bit float. There's a lot of options that you have there, ranging from getting in at like the under $100 mark right up to several $100s for their higher end gear. But IK Multimedia, why are they good? Why are the iRigs so good? Well, it's because they come shipped with 3 different cables. You get a lightning cable, you get a USB cable, and you get a USB-C cable. So if you're connecting up to your PC, your Mac, your Android device, your Apple device, any device at all, it's going to work out of the box. You don't need any adapters, and it's not like a big chunky thing that sits on your desk. It's just a nice small little device that comes with all the cables you need. It's got MIDI built in, which is an important thing if you're using MIDI keyboards. It just works. It is my go-to if I'm recording on the go, if I'm out and about, iRig all the way. So that's your audio interface options. Do you want a desktop audio interface? If you're recording in the one space, I would recommend going with a Focusrite or a Steinberg or something along those lines. If you're out and about, maybe something like the iRig. If all you're ever going to record is spoken word or vocals or things with your microphone, your acoustic guitar that you're going to use a microphone with, a USB microphone might be where you need to look. Let's talk about headphones. Every time I mention headphones, I get more comments on my videos about headphones than any other video. And there's a very good reason for that. And that is because headphones are very personal. Everyone's got different shaped heads. Everyone's got different shaped ears. Everyone's hearing is different. Everyone's comfort level is different. Everyone's ability to accept the pressure of headphones is different. So headphones are one of the items that I think your best bet is to go into a bricks and mortar. I don't remember those old things called music stores where you go in there and you can actually try things out. I highly recommend taking some of your music. Most music stores will let you do this. Take your music on a USB drive, or if you've got it streaming somewhere, that's even easier. They'll help you out. They'll hook you up and let you listen and put some headphones on and wear them. If you're seriously considering spending $100 or more on a pair of headphones, wear them for 10, 15, 20 minutes, as long as they'll let you before they kick you out, because it's important. You're going to wear these things for a long time. I recommend the Sennheiser HD280 Pro. They're a closed back monitor headphones. But some people hate them. Some people don't like them at all because it's a personal preference. I like them because they have nice big oval-shaped cups that go all the way over my ears. They create a nice seal around my ears, which is important for that mic bleed stuff we talked about before. I find the padding on the top and the sides really, really comfortable. I'm wearing them right now if you're watching the video version. I find them really good, and the audio quality is nice. It's balanced. It's neutral. Again, you don't want, probably I should say this because you may be getting your first pair of monitor headphones. But the idea of monitoring headphones is you do not want them to flavor your audio at all. You don't want them to be super bass heavy. A lot of people are like, I want extra bass. I'm going to use Bose headphones because they've got extra bass. That's not great for mixing your music because you're not hearing a neutral, flat response with your frequencies. You want something that is going to be as neutral as possible. And that's why I like the Sennheiser HD280 Pro. What other options do you have? AKG makes some great headphones that many people love. Audio-Technica make the AT40 and 50 and 70 range of headphones, which a lot of people love. Sony makes some great headphones that a lot of people love. Beta Dynamics make some headphones a lot of people love. Again, like your audio interface, I highly recommend that you get something from a brand name that you've heard of, because you know that they're going to, have a little bit of a clout behind them. If you buy something that looks like a knockoff and is half the price, you're probably going to get lower quality. And anything around, with headphones, even $100 is sort of mid-range. You can get some good quality ones around the $50, $60, $70 mark, especially those Audio-Technica and AKG headphones. Again, it's really about getting monitor headphones that are going to have a neutral response and that are closed back. Now, what does that mean? That's the one final thing I'll mention about headphones, because we're not going into a heap of detail here. You can do more research or watch other videos here on the channel. But closed back means that there's no audio escaping from the headphone. So the reason that I use these when I'm tracking audio, which means recording, say a guitar or a vocal, is that I don't want that bleed to come out. If these were what's called an open back headphone, which can be great for mixing and mastering, then there would actually be audio coming out. You'd be able to hear it. You know, when you're on the bus or the train and you're hearing someone's audio coming through really loud, yeah, that's because they're probably using open back headphones. If they were using closed back headphones, it creates a seal and not much of that noise actually can escape. So that's important for most folks. You want to go for a closed back monitoring headphone. Outside of that, yeah, it comes down to personal preference and comfort level as well. So you got your audio interface, you got yourself a pair of headphones. What are you recording with? Well, if you have a guitar, you're just plugging your guitar in and you're recording. If you've got a keyboard or a synthesizer, you're plugging that in and recording. But for many folks, we want to actually capture sound. We want to capture our voice or an acoustic guitar or an acoustic instrument or a drum kit or whatever you've got. And that's where you'll need a microphone. And microphones, again, like headphones, can be a personal thing, but there's a few basic things to keep in mind with a microphone. Number one is to choose between the two main types of microphones used in home studio recording, and that is a large diaphragm condenser or a medium or even a small diaphragm condenser, but a condenser microphone that requires phantom power, or a dynamic microphone. Now, I'm talking into a dynamic microphone, the Rode PodMic. We'll talk about this in a moment. The microphone that I'm about to talk about and showing on the screen on the video version is the Audio-Technica AT2020. It's a cardioid medium diaphragm condenser microphone. And why do I like this one? It's because it's the great all-rounder. If you were to buy one microphone, this kind of does everything. This is really nice on acoustic guitar. This works well on most styles of vocals and voices. It works well capturing sound. And the reason for that is that what a condenser microphone does is it uses that phantom power to actually amplify the sound. It doesn't work exactly like that, but that's the easiest way to explain it. And what that means is it's going to pick up a very high level of detail. The reason I'm using a dynamic microphone, a broadcast style microphone for this podcast, is I live in a reasonably noisy environment. There's cars and trucks going past, there's rumbling sounds, there's background noise, and I'm not in a perfectly treated room here, despite the green screen look here that looks like I'm in some futuristic retro wave something or other. But for the vast majority of folks that are just recording everything, this is a great option for you. As long as you have an environment that is not the noisiest in the world, and you're not recording super loud sounds, because it picks up everything, everything including the distortion if you push it too hard, and everything including all those delicate little breaths and things that you may or may not want in your recording. And of course, you can use things like noise gates and you can use noise removal, but why struggle with that after the fact when you can avoid it in the first place? But using a condenser microphone is pretty common and it's pretty popular. The other option is to use a dynamic microphone. Now, I use the AKG D5. It's a super cardioid dynamic handheld vocal microphone. The benefits of a dynamic is that it has a lot better noise rejection. So if you've got a very noisy environment or very loud sources, so you're playing an electric guitar, there's a reason that the SM57, which I'll show in a moment and talk about, is the most popular microphone for, say, mic and guitar cabinets and guitar amps traditionally. I know there's different people and different ways to do things. You can still use a condenser mic with a guitar cabinet. You just have to position it correctly and set the gain correctly. But a vocal microphone or a dynamic microphone can work really well because you can get right up on it. You don't have that same problem of getting the overdone. You don't get super plosive sounds. Even if I get right up on a dynamic microphone, you do get a little bit of that low end effect, but it's not going to be so bad. And it does reject a lot of noise. So I'm not in a perfectly quiet environment. You will still hear, some breathing because I have to breathe between sentences, but it's not picking it up at the same level as other microphones may do. So that is Your other option, and with microphones, you generally do want to go with something decent quality again. The quality, the microphone quality is going to really affect the sound more than anything, more than what you record to. This is the thing. People say, oh, I don't want to use an iPhone or an iPad. I want to use a PC or a Mac because that's real recording. It's ones and zeros. By the time you've put it through a microphone, through an audio interface, it's ones and zeros. So the quality is not at that end of the chain. The quality is at the front end of the chain. It's how well you sing or how well you play, how well your microphone captures that sound, and then how well your interface converts that analog sound into digital sound, into ones and zeros that the computer can understand. The classics, the Shure SM58 and SM57. These are basically identical microphones. The SM58 is the one that has that ball on top that you'd see traditionally when people are singing. They've been used for decades. They're a classic vocal microphone. The SM57 is basically the same thing, but it doesn't have the ball on the end because it's designed as an instrument microphone. It still has a little pop filter, a little thing in the top there to stop it. So you can use those for vocal mics. I've seen a lot of old school 80s and 90s bands where they're singing into an SM57 just to be hardcore. And again, beauty of those is better noise rejection and they'll pick up less sensitivity. It does mean though that if you've got really quiet sounds, so say you've got a very intimate vocal, you're recording a very intimate vocal, then it's not going to pick up as much of that sound as if you're using a large diaphragm or a medium diaphragm microphone. It's going to pick up a lot more of the sound than if it's really quiet. Yeah. So if you've got if you're recording, especially female vocals, sometimes a condenser microphone is kind of the only way to go. But again, the beauty of a dynamic is even with a really quiet vocal, if you get right up on it, you can still record those more intimate sounds. So microphones, if you had to buy two, you could buy one of each and you'd spend about $200. Now, I have recently bought this microphone, the Rode PodMic, and I've been kind of blown away. You've been listening to me on this microphone throughout this podcast, and I know, on YouTube or the compression that you might be hearing on YouTube or through your podcast player, it's all compressed audio, but it does really capture great sound. It gives you the best opportunity to create really high quality sound when you're recording with something like this. So this is a cardioid dynamic broadcast microphone. It's similar to an SM58 or similar to the AKG D5, but it's more designed for doing things like I'm doing right now, doing a podcast, recording a live stream. But don't let that fool you because it's actually really good on vocals. I use it on my happy hour show each week, and the vocals I think sound really good on that. I haven't tried it on guitar, but I've watched some videos of other folks using it on things like guitars and other instruments, and it works well for that too. So this may be, and I mean, I'm looking at the Sweetwater site right now. This thing has 57 reviews and it's at 5-star. Like, there's almost no one that doesn't rate this microphone 5 stars because it's $99 US right now. It's the same price as an SM58 or 57, and it's actually cheaper than the AKG D5, and the quality is probably better. So yeah, this might be a great microphone to go for. It doesn't have that classic look and styling of a handheld microphone or a condenser mic. It's front address as opposed to side address, so it's a little bit different to use, but I think it's going to become a microphone of choice not only for podcasters, being called the PodMic, but for people actually recording things as well. Let's move on. So that is really, when you're starting out, having a good quality audio interface, having a good quality microphone and some headphones, that's going to do 99% of what a lot of people will want to do, because at that point you can record guitar, you can record vocals, you can record spoken word, you can record any MIDI instruments you have, you can record your keyboards and synthesizers, you can record a stereo sound source, you can plug in your old mini disc player and record it at that point. So you can capture pretty much any sound you like using those devices, which I think is a good thing. At some point, you may want to go with some monitor speakers. Now, monitor speakers, like headphones, when I start talking monitor speakers, people say, well, if you don't spend at least $1,000 a speaker and get at least a 7-inch speaker, you're not even serious about this stuff. And that's fair. That's a fair point. I'll take it. But guess what? Some of us don't have thousands of dollars to spend. Some of us just want the ability to have another way to monitor our audio. And that's where the PreSonus 3.5, the Iris 3.5 inch powered studio monitors, I've been using these for a long time. I have used other speakers. I've used KRK Rockets. I've got some other speakers that I'll be checking out soon. There are options for your speakers. And like everything in the home studio, you can start small and upgrade. And the reason that I love these, and I know many people that have purchased these, both on my recommendation and on the recommendation of others, is that they are just little powerhouses. They punch well above their weight. Again, at the moment, they're $99.99 US right now. And I bought mine for, about $150 Australian about 5 years ago. And I was testing them instead of so these are 3.5 inch speakers. I was testing them in replacement of my 5-inch KRK Rockets, and the Rockets never came back. The Rockets are still on the shelf because these things have so many advantages. Most of them practical in that they have a power switch, which you might not think is important, but for me, when I'm doing something like a podcast like I'm doing right now, I can flick off my speakers with just one flick. I don't have to go behind 2 separate speakers and turn them off independently, and it's all off, and I'm not getting any of that background noise coming back at me when I'm using headphones to record. They've got the ability to plug in to the front, so you can actually plug in headphones right onto the front of them, which you wouldn't think is actually that useful, but it really is, as well as an aux in. So you can actually send in a 3.5 millimeter, eighth inch plug if it's coming out of, say, your phone or a stereo or another piece of equipment. So that can be super handy. There's also a Bluetooth version of these that have Bluetooth built in, so you can use them as Bluetooth speakers. So you can grab your phone and just start playing through them, which is pretty handy. And they just sound great. Now, they are near field monitors, so you're not going to be able to, pump audio into a huge space with these. But for the price and for what you get, for the value, they are just really, really good. Now, do you need monitor speakers? Some people say you do. Some people say you need a treated room. You need monitor speakers. You need the perfect setup. The reality of the situation is that the vast majority of people in the home studio aren't looking for perfect radio-ready perfection. They're looking for the best quality that they can put together with the budget that they have. And that's the big thing that's missing. And that's the reason why I keep using more sort of consumer-grade gear. I don't want to. Even though I've been doing this for nearly a decade, I could potentially put some better quality gear in my studio. The reason I don't want to is that my job, I think, here at Studio Live today is to show you what could be done. If you've got $300, $400, $500, you want to put together a home studio, you can do it. You don't have to spend a fortune to get good quality sound. I always compare it to wine. It's like the difference. This is why you don't buy the $20 microphones and the $30 speakers and the $10 headphones, because that's like your $5 bottle of wine. But if you buy these PreSonus speakers, if you buy the Rode Pod mic, if you buy a Steinberg interface or a Focusrite interface, you're getting that $20 bottle of wine. And sure, if you're a wine connoisseur, you can probably tell the difference between a $20 and a $100 bottle of wine. And if you have the money to buy a $100 bottle of wine and you can taste the difference, great, good luck to you. But the vast majority of us don't and can't. So we stick with stuff that is affordable and gets the job done. And that's what I see as my job here, is that, yes, when I send you to these links, they're affiliate links and they will break off a chunk and send it to me. But I also don't want to tell you to buy things that are more expensive than you can afford. Because, again, my reputation is worth a lot more than the 2 or 3% that Sweetwater or Amazon will break off and send to me. And I don't want you buying stuff that's not going to work out for you. I'll pause at this point before we dive into this next item and I did say that I'd give you a few additional buying tips towards the end. And we are sort of winding our way towards the end here. Got a bit more to talk about, though. And the tip I want to give you here is make sure you buy from a reputable place. So the reason that the links I use and the things that I've been showing you here on this podcast are things like Amazon, Sweetwater, eBay, and Thomann is that all 4 of those retailers have good return policies, have good reputations, have been around for a long time, and never say never, but are unlikely to be going anywhere anytime soon. So the reason that that's who I link to is that if you buy through these places, you can buy with the confidence that you're going to get a genuine item, that is going to arrive in a decent amount of time, and that if something goes wrong with it, or even if it just doesn't work out for you, they've got a great return policy. So you can actually return the item. If you buy from Steve's online audio gear instead, no offense to anyone out there called Steve, you got no guarantee that Steve's going to be around in 3 months or 3 years. And are you going to get a genuine item? I made the big mistake of buying some guitar strings, some elixirs that were at a too good to be true price. And guess what? They were fake. That's just that's some $20 guitar strings that I paid $10 for and should have known better. But yeah, if you're getting a device, if you're buying, say, the Sennheiser headphones and you're buying them from Amazon for $100 or from Headphones R Us with the R backwards for $70, don't be surprised if you get maybe some refurbished headphones or maybe some knockoff headphones that aren't actually the real deal. You just don't know. So be careful. Buyer beware, caveat emptor, all that jazz, because, yeah, you want to make sure that you're buying from somewhere that's going to be reputable. And that includes a lot of brick and mortar stores. So if you don't want to buy through this, I hear a lot of people talk about Sweetwater and Guitar Center when they actually go into the store. They like that because they get some help and people know what they're talking about at those places. For me here in Australia, I like Derringers. I buy a lot of my stuff from Derringers if I want to go and actually play with it and test it out. And don't forget, a lot of those brick and mortar stores will match the online prices for you. If you're there in person, don't go, all right, thanks for your help, salesperson. I'm going to go and buy it online now. At least give them the courtesy of telling them, hey, this place has it for this price. Can you match it? More often than not, they will. You'll be surprised. And yes, that means that I don't get your commission. But again, I would rather you be happy and get the item right now than go home and have to order it and wait for it and all of that jazz. All right, let's move on. I talked about MIDI, and if you are a MIDI keyboard player, you probably already know about MIDI controllers. But even if you're not, don't stop listening and stop watching just now, because having a MIDI controller can actually be super cool. I've always got one within arm's reach here in the studio because you can use it for a lot more than just playing the piano. You can use it for playing chords. You can use it for adding pads, just a single note if you just need to get the timing exactly right. You can use it as drum pad. You can play in your drums using a MIDI keyboard. So having a MIDI keyboard controller is super, super handy. I recommend the M Audio Keystation range. I currently use this one, which is the Keystation 49 Mark III. And why do I like it? Because it's simple. It has everything I need and nothing I don't. And because I use GarageBand and Logic Pro on my iPad a lot, they don't have a heap of MIDI learn functions and they don't have a heap of complexity. And that's good because I don't have extra stuff that I can't use. So what are you looking for in a MIDI keyboard? Generally, you want to make sure you have a pitch bend and a modulation wheel. They can just be handy when you're playing in some cool lead parts. You've got a volume control on there and you've got some basic cursor functions. You've also got your octave up and down button there. And that's about it. You've got your keys. And these are nice. Look, they're not weighted, but they are touch sensitive. So you've got 49 touch sensitive keys there. And it is just a really solid unit. Doesn't have a whole lot of functionality, but it does have a sustain pedal input there. And it does have USB connectivity. And it's enough. It's enough for me. Now, can you spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on better, quote unquote, keyboards? Of course you can. There's MIDI controllers anywhere from $20 to probably $10,000. I don't know. I don't know what the top end is like because I've never been there. But the reason I like the Keystation is that it is the best balance, in my opinion. And there are different models as well, which is cool. So there's a Keystation for everyone, starting at $59 for the little 32 key mini, which can be really handy if you're just getting started. If you're like, oh, what am I going to do? I'll start with a MIDI keyboard. Then that's a great option for you. It doesn't quite have all the same functions and obviously has smaller keys, etc., but can definitely be a good option for you. And they do go all the way up to an 88 key version as well, which again is at a reasonable price, $249 at the time of recording this for your full 88 key M Audio Keystation. You got Akai, you got M Audio, you got a whole bunch of other folks that make decent quality MIDI controllers. This just happens to be the one that I like. And again, your mileage may vary. Do your research. And that's the other thing. I'm going to throw another tip in here, which is that it's best to not just go to one person. As much as I'd love to say everyone should just buy what I buy, That's not always the right thing. Now, what you can do is use my links to buy, even if you're buying something that someone else recommends. But do look at a number of recommendations and try to find folks that are real people. So look for the person, look for the human, because there's so many review sites now that are just click farms, that are just come to this site and they'll have links to absolutely everything. And it'll be like, you've seen these. They're like top10breadmakers.com. And it's just some dude, could be a lady, but usually a dude. It's just some person that has just bought a domain, has put up a whole bunch of clickbaity articles to try and get their SEO, their search engine optimization, to the point where when someone searches best bread maker, it goes to them. And guess what? People have done it with microphones and speakers and audio interfaces. So if you do you, but if you see something that's just an article, or it's one of those videos that just has a fake AI voiceover, it's like, here are the top 10 audio interfaces for home recording in 2024. Number 1, the PreSonus audio, and like all the links and all the things. Yeah, just beware of that. Look for the human. I'm not just saying that because I'm a human. There are other humans that you can listen to. Like, there's plenty of other people in the home recording world. Joe Gilder and Graham Cochran was who I used to always listen to, and they were people, and they steered me towards the sort of gear that they used. And some of it I started using myself, and some of it I went, no, that's not for me. I don't need that. I'm going to go with this. So, and my mate Patrick over at the GarageBand Guide, same deal. Patrick is a human, and he's going to recommend to you stuff that he's used and that he actually thinks is good. Do we sometimes get stuff sent to us? Yes. Full disclosure, IK Multimedia have sent me some of their products in the past. The iRig Pro Duo and Pro Quattro I was talking about before, they sent me those to test out. But it's not like they didn't pay me to do any reviews of them. They just said, here, try this. Let people know if you dig it. I tried it. I dug it. I told you. So look for the human and make sure that it is a reputable person. All right, let's get into sort of the next level zone, because once you start recording, or maybe you want to do podcasting, or you want to do live streaming, or you want a little more flexibility with your setup, you might want to graduate from an audio interface to a mixer. Now, I've been through a few different mixers, and they're all over at my gear guide. I originally used a mixer. I'm going to have to go to my own gear guide to remember the name of it now. If I come down to my mixers section, they should still all be here, because they're all still great mixers, but they're at different levels. So originally I used something called the Samson Mix Pad, the MXP124FX, if you're shopping along at home. And that was a great mixer. It was simple. It did what it needed to do, and it was a great mixer, and I used that for the longest time. I then moved on to the Zoom Live Track L8. That was kind of my workhorse for a while. That was the engine room of the studio. It was great. It had its foibles, but it did the job until I used it for so long that one of the sliders just started moving on its own, and the screen was starting to fade. And I ran it into the ground. I used it for hours every day, and gear these days, it's great, but it's just not designed to be used for more than 5 years a lot of the time. So when that kind of came to its end of life, I moved on to the Rodecaster Pro 2 podcast production console. That's what it's called, but it's so much more than that, because you can do podcasting, you can record multi-track audio, you can do live streaming, you can record your music. You can do a lot of things with this. It is expensive, but you get what you pay for. It is Rode, so it's high quality, and it does have a lot of different options. Now, full disclosure, mine currently has a few quirks. It works 99% of the time, and I get occasional crashes, which hasn't happened today. I'm touching all the wood, but sometimes I do have issues with the current Procaster that I'm using. But I'm in discussion with Rode now, and chances are, if it's an actual issue, they'll fix it or replace it. Because guess what? What did I say before about that reputable? Yeah, you want to use someone that's reputable. And Zoom, who made my Zoom Live Track, and Rode, who made the Procaster, both make good quality products and are both good companies. So if you're looking to upgrade and you want that more flexibility, a mixer might be something in your future. Before we finish off, a couple of things that you're going to need, and that is cables. Now, you can buy all of this gear, and then if you buy the cheapest cable you can possibly find, you can introduce some noise and you can introduce some low quality before your microphone or before your guitar even hits your audio interface and even gets to your digital audio workstation. So you don't need to buy the absolute most expensive. Sweetwater really only sell decent quality gear. But if you're buying an XLR cable, so your XLR is that three-prong cable that you need for your microphones. So you plug your microphone in one end, you plug the other end into an XLR connection. And once again, those are those three-prong ones. It'll either be a combo jack on your audio interface, or it'll be a little three holes and you plug the male end in, you plug the other end into your microphone. So don't cheap out on your cables. When you're buying your audio interface and your microphone, again, you don't need to buy the $100 cables, but try and stay away from the $5 cables. Again, it's that wine analogy. If you buy a $20 cable or $15 cable, you'll be pretty good. The same goes for your guitar cables. Because once again, if your cables are too long or if they're poor quality, what that can do is actually introduce noise or interference. You can get that ground hum in your recordings, which nobody likes, which is that sort of electrical interference. So getting yourself a nice shielded cable that's not going to pick up noise, that's going to give you the best quality audio going in. And again, I use the Ernie Ball right angle guitar cables because they just work well. They're braided, they don't get all tangled, and they just plug in, fit nicely, and give you good quality audio. And they don't break the bank. We're not talking $100 cables. We're talking $15, $20, $25 cables here. But again, don't cheap out on the cables. The one final cable that you'll need that's a little bit surprising for some folks is as soon as you go to some speakers, as soon as you're using monitor speakers, you'll need good quality TRS cables. These are, TRS stands for tip, ring, sleeve. These are balanced audio cables. They're different from an instrument cable because unlike an instrument cable that only has one ring and the tip, they're called TS cables. TRS cables have tip, ring, and sleeve. If you want to learn all the nerdy details about balance versus unbalanced, about TRS, TS, TRRS, you can check out my video. Just search Pete Johns TRS on your YouTube and you'll find some nifty little videos that explain everything about cables. And in fact, I've even got a cable guide, not cable guy, but cable guide at studiolivetoday.com/cables. So if you want to learn about the best cables to use, that's the place to go. What do you think? Are you looking to upgrade your gear? Are you brand new to home studios and home recording and you're just getting started and you want to get yourself set up? Let me know in the comments where you're at, what you're looking to get, and if you're having more recommendations. Because again, you need multiple sources. One source is not usually enough to tell you everything you need to know because you may be a different type of creator. Maybe you do want much higher quality gear and you need to go talk to a Market Creative Source because he uses more expensive and higher quality gear for his recordings. That might be an option. Or maybe you do want to try the really cheap stuff. Maybe you're like, nah, I think you're wrong, Johns. I'm going to buy the $26.99 complete recording kit from Amazon and give it a crack. Go for it. Give it a try. If you do, use the link at studiolivetoday.com/gear to do it. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this helped you if you are in the market for any gear or if you're looking to upgrade your gear or if you just wanted to hear a little bit about what I use and recommend here in the home studio. As always, you can head over to studiolivetoday.com for a whole bunch more, all the ways to follow me, how to subscribe to the YouTube channel, how to subscribe to this very podcast. If you're watching on the video version, again, love your comments. Leave those in the comments section below. I'll be down there reading each and every one. And if you're on the audio version, love for you to leave a review on your audio podcatcher of choice. That's going to do it for this one. Please be kind to yourself, folks. Be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you next time on the Studio Live Today podcast.